Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. I'm KP and here today we're going to be running through an NXT recap from the March 10th edition of the show. This comes just after NXT Vengeance Day this past weekend, and we are now on the road to NXT Stand and Deliver. So how about we kick things off with our usual start of the recap, which is the opening segment of the night, which would be your brand new NXT Women's North American Champion, Tatum Paxley. She would come down to the ring, basically kicking off the show with a bit of a promo, and she would start off by basically looking back on her past, saying how she has, in the past number of years, attempted to force friendships to try and be noticed. She says, though, at Vengeance Day, when she won that NXT North American Women's Championship, that she won the title because of the fans who reminded her to keep on going, to keep on pushing forward, and just to keep on being who she is, and that's what everyone loves her for. She says that she now has confidence in herself. Before then, she's quickly interrupted by Izzy Dame. Izzy Dame starts basically just walking down the ramp and immediately essentially plays a tape on the Tron. This sort of highlights the early days of Paxley in NXT. It sort of shows references to a days in Diamond Mine with the likes of Ivy Nile and the Creed brothers, as well as then losing her match in the NXT Women's Breakout Tournament, which she was a part of. Izzy says that Tatum is fake and that she hasn't changed at all over the course of time, before then saying that the unlovable girl that Paxley is trying to hide away will once again come on out to haunt her. She demands she gets her title back. Before then we see Sean Spears and Nico Vance get onto the apron, distracting Tatum Paxley. Then Izzy Dame powerbombs Paxley, poses with the championship to end the segment. So it looks like Izzy Dame still is not done with the NXT Women's North American Champion. Tatum Paxley definitely still has a bit of a target on her back from her old school friend and now rival and enemy. But yeah, it looks like Izzy Dame is not done, and we're gonna have a continuation of this going forward. Coming up after that, we would then have a triple threat matchup between Super Sean Legacy as well as Eli Knight and Jasper Troy. This one would start off quite chaotically because not too long into the matchup, we would have Keanu Carver come on down and assert his dominance, and he would actually slam Jasper Troy through the announce table at ringside. This then sort of sees Jasper Troy out for the majority of the matchup. Sean Legacy and Eli Knight have a bit of back and forth. It's quite a fun matchup. And it gets to a point in the end where we do eventually see Jasper Troy getting back into the matchup, and he's heavily involved in the finish. Jasper gets hit by a springboard 450 from Super Sean Legacy, but then as he sort of hits that 450, Sean bounces off of Troy. That allows Eli Knight to go up to the top rope and hit a moonsault, and sort of both men actually go to cover Jasper Troy at the same time, but both from different angles. They don't necessarily know that they're both covering him, I guess. They got their backs towards each other. And the referee counts to 3, awarding the victory to both Eli Knight and Super Sean Legacy here, both having pinned Jasper Troy at the same time. So, yeah, quite the interesting situation here, but it does sort of come to a bit of light later on in the show, where Elio Lafleur, the current men's speed champion, basically issues the fact that, both these men deserve the opportunity to go after the speed championship again. So he's basically asking for a triple threat matchup, which Robert Stone does authorize later on in the show. But yeah, quite the unique situation and scenario here as we go from our first match to our second match of the show. This would be a tag team contest where we would see the likes of Lexis King and Uriah Connors. They would take on the team of Tavion Heights and Charlie Dempsey. A little bit of an NQCC reunion here between the two as they take on Birthright. This one's a pretty decent matchup, just a standard tag team contest for the most part, generally speaking. Until then, we see William Regal and Fit Finlay walking down the ramp. That sort of provides a little bit of a distraction sort of thing. Attention goes a little bit onto them. And we do see Tavion Heights and Charlie Dempsey go to the outside of the ring as a result of the action that spills out to there. As Tavion Heights sort of like prepares to get back into the ring, Charlie Dempsey, he actually pulls Tavion Heights back out of the ring, and then hits him with a German suplex on the outside, sort of turning his back on his NQCC teammate of the past, and then sort of rolls Heights back into the ring. Lexis King capitalizes very quickly, hits the coronation, and that would be the 1-2-3 for Birthright in this matchup. Charlie Dempsey wouldn't waste too much time afterwards as well. He would align himself alongside the rest of Birthright, and it looks like potentially this faction is now complete. But yeah, the introduction of William Regal and Fit Finlay, looking forward to seeing how that sort of transpires going forward here, because this group is looking quite interesting now that we've got a whole group of 5, plus the 2 legends. Coming up after that, we would then see the man who is absolutely on a roll right now, Tony D'Angelo, the man who's been taking down Dark State single-handedly over the last number of weeks. He would come down cutting a promo, basically saying that he came back for 2 reasons, and that Vengeance Day, reason 1 was complete. He looks ahead to reason 2, saying that he considered his future when he was away during his time off. He thinks of the man that he used to be before his time away, saying that there was one thing that he couldn't do. He claims he's now buried that man, and that he's now the toughest SOB in NXT. He says the second reason for coming back is to win the NXT Championship. He then turns his attention to Joe Hendry, saying that if he needs to break his face, then he absolutely will do. He issues a warning to Joe Hendry, saying that he will be the next NXT champion before then his segment comes to an end. So, yeah, the intensity is definitely clear for Tony D'Angelo here. He's coming after the NXT Championship. Joe Hendry's got a lot on his plate right now. This is another name to add to the mix. Pretty expected, but a logical choice here from Tony D. So going from one half to another then, we go into our second half of the show. This would then see a one-on-one matchup between solruca and Lainey Reed of Fatal Influence. solruca looking to get some serious momentum ahead of her championship matchup next week in that triple threat contest, alongside former best friend Zarya and JC Jane. This one would be a pretty decent matchup, to be fair. Lainey Reed comes out of the gates here and actually has a really good showing, to be honest, against solruca. No real surprises here. solruca does get the victory over Lainey Reed, but it doesn't come off of an easy one-on-one matchup. Obviously, you've got Fatal Influence on the outside, sort of like spurring Lainey on and getting involved in a little bit here and there. But yeah, solruca does overcome all of that. Lainey actually hits a crucifix bomb onto Sol, looking to really just like get the matchup done and dusted. But then solruca avoids a incoming knee strike to the face from Lainey Reed, and then just sort of capitalizes quickly, gets out the way, hits a Soul Snatcher, and that would be enough for her to claim a victory here over 1/3 of Fatal Influence. After the matchup, we see solruca basically just staring down at the champion and the rest of the group of Fatal Influence, and then Zarya sort of like appears behind the group as there's sort of like a bit of a stare down between solruca and potentially Zarya as well there in that situation. So yeah, solruca, serious momentum going into next week. Will she capture that NXT Women's Championship though, that she's been so craving for a long time? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But it's a win against Lainey Reed on this episode of NXT for solruca. Coming up after that, we would then have a one-on-one matchup, which would be the semi-final of the Women's Speed Championship Tournament. This would have an opportunity for Ren Sinclair and Thea Hale to go one-on-one with Fallon Henley for that title next week. This one would be a pretty quick-paced match. I think it was roughly about a minute and 40 seconds here on the clock by the time it was all said and done. But basically, Thea Hale gets to a situation where she tries to implement a Kimura lock onto Ren Sinclair. Ren Sinclair sort of like outpowers it, doesn't really allow Thea to really like get it properly in, and she does a really nice transition, sort of like floats over into the final wrench, and that sort of like cattle mutilation style maneuver is enough for Ren Sinclair to get the victory here via tap out from Thea Hale. So yeah, she will go one-on-one with Fallon Henley for that Women's Speed Championship next week on NXT live from Houston, Texas. And then we went into our main event of the show. This would be after Robert Stone would basically talk about the NXT Tag Team division. He would sort of have like them all backstage, and there would be a little bit of back and forth between plans and whatnot for Vanity Project. He would announce actually that Vanity Project will be in a 3-on-3 tag match against El Grande Americano and Los Americanos next week on NXT. But not only that, we do also have a NXT Tag Team Tournament announced, which will see new Tag Team Championship number 1 contenders crowned in the incoming weeks. But yeah, our main event. So, tag team matchup between Ethan Page and Ricky Saints taking on the team of Joe Hendry and Mars Bourne. So essentially the past challengers, I guess you could say, taking on the current champions of the men's division for NXT. This would be quite a fun main event, to be fair. Very hard-hitting, very fast-paced. Lots of layers here and elements to the contest. But in the end, it would be the team of Ethan Page and Ricky Saints that would prevail. Not the cleanest win, though. Basically what happens in this matchup is at one point we do see the NXT North American Championship from Ricky Saints be tossed into the ring, but like what happened at NXT Vengeance Day, the title just slides past Ethan Page. Obviously this is a different situation because it's now Ethan in the ring and Ricky on the outside. It goes flying past Ethan Page and still left no communication between the two right there. Once that's all said and done, though, the match does continue. We go into a little bit further on, down the line, and then we see the NXT Championship implemented in the contest, and that actually finds its way to Ricky Saints. The referee manages to stop Saints capitalizing on that one, take the title off of him, before Joe Hendry then looks to roll up Ricky. He gets out of it, though. starts to go on a roll to Saints and then hits a spear onto Joe Hendry. That then sees Ethan Page sort of tag in whilst Ricky's going for the spear when he bounces off the ropes. Don't think Ricky really realizes at the time. Once that spear hits, Ethan does get in the ring, basically saying that he's the legal man and that, you know, he's got to be the one that's in the ring now. A little bit of discourse between the two men there. Wasn't quite on the same page, I guess you could say. And then it gets a situation where Mars Bourne comes into the ring, drop kicks Ricky Saints. He goes to the apron, and the referee deals with Miles, telling him to get back out onto the apron himself. Ethan Page then capitalizes on Joe Hendry, though, as he's still a bit wounded. Hits Twisted Grin. The NXT Championship is still on the mat here at this point. I'm not entirely sure how it stayed in the ring, but regardless of the fact that the Twisted Grin lands on Joe Hendry, Joe Hendry's face lands directly on the championship, and he is out for the 1-2-3, granting Ethan Page the victory here via pinfall, giving him and Ricky Saints the win in this matchup. So, yeah, a little bit of discourse here between Ethan and Ricky. At the end of the matchup, the two do pose in the ring and sort of like celebrate their win, but I think realization sort of seemingly creeps in from Ricky Saints a little bit, maybe, sort of a little bit of doubt on the situation as you realize what could potentially be happening. There's a little bit of an awkwardness between the two of them, but it is quite fun to see the dynamic changing here between the two men in each interaction. So, yeah, that would be the end of the segment here, end of the show, generally speaking. This NXT felt okay. It didn't have like a star-studded card, to be honest. I think they're sort of buying their time until next week in Houston, where it should be a pretty solid show by the sounds of it. But, yeah, in terms of what we saw, though, I guess, you know, we continue treading water with Tatum Patsy and Izzy Dame. Did I expect it to end? I'm not entirely certain, but it's still carrying on regardless. A little bit of Blake Monroe interview backstage. Maybe she's coming for that championship. It's hard to tell, but we're not 100% convinced just yet. Yeah, wins for Eli Knight and Superstar Legacy. The men's speed championship situation continues. The women's speed championship tournament obviously comes to an end with Ren Sinclair winning, being the number one contender now for Fallon Henley's title. And we do see Birthright finishing up as a faction together. So, yeah, there's a lot going on here on the show. It's just, in terms of the big things, maybe not quite to that level. I gave this episode of NXT a 7 out of 10. I think it was a slight improvement on last week's, but not one of their best ones for sure. But for now, everybody, that has been our recap here from The Push for this week's episode of NXT. Let us know what you guys thought of this one, whether you liked it, whether you didn't, whether you agree with me, whether you don't. We'd love to hear everything that you're thinking. Also, consider hitting a like and subscribe to our channel. Basically, we're always looking for some support here, so, you know, any support is appreciated very, very muchly from us both here at The Push. But for now, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, and goodbye for now.